So we are basically live now, and we'll just start in on 11:101. We'll start 11:101 so that others join us. We just allow people to join in. People are coming in. Right. So since we've gone live, so we can actually start now. Since everybody can hear me. On behalf of the Policy Development Facility 2, now called PDF Bridge Program, the funders of the study we are about to validate today, I welcome everyone to the Validation Roundtable. My name is Sant Mbakalo. I'm the Executive Director of Africa International Trade and Commerce Research. I will be your moderator and facilitator for today's roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered virtually today, being the 27th of October 2020, for the validation roundtable of the study titled Analysis and Impact of Export Expansion Grants on Export Potential, Market Access, and Export Competitiveness in Nigeria. I want to especially thank and welcome the panelists that have taken time out of their busy schedule to attend and participate in the validation roundtable. Let me take us through a quick rundown of the housekeeping. Everybody that signs in, and even panelists, should mute their mic if they are not speaking. And as well as, if you have traffic, if you have a network issue, kindly turn off your mic and your camera to help with the traffic, the network flow. We have structured this webinar today in such a way where we will elicit objective conversation that will help that will add value to EEG scheme. At the end of the day, we want to have an actionable plan. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented truly unique challenge for everyone, and as well as it has also presented opportunity for us to undergo both transformational policy. For businesses, it has presented opportunity for us to realign our operation, both the demand and the supply side. On government side, it has given us opportunity to rejiggle and readapt our economic policy framework. Likewise, repositioning for the non-oil exports to be competitive. This is an enormous opportunity we must not allow to go to waste. EEG scheme is one of the numerous government programs that aim to increase the volume and competitiveness of Nigerian non-oil exports.
Your cease.
Can you mute your mic, please?
We are not.
Is the mic mute? Can we mute our mic, please? So basically, EEG is giving us an opportunity for us to review, for it to work for the non-oil exports. We must engage policymakers in a constructive manner, and that is why I commend PDF Bridge Program for the support they've given to promoting non-oil exports over the years, and as well as providing technical support for the Nigerian government. The recent NSAS movement has brought to the fore the need for us to engage. We need peace, tranquility, good governance, accountability. And our collective responsibility should support sound policy that will make us competitive in the new normal. May the soul of those that have departed during this crisis rest in peace. At this point, may I invite Dr. Titilayo Akindeyinde, the program manager of PDF Bridge Program, for our opening remark.
Titilola.
Thank you, Sand. My name is Titilola. Thank you. Yes, so good morning, everyone. Can I just take this opportunity first to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Lawal Delhat, who is Deputy Director, NEPC Incentives Division, Mrs. Chika Nwangwu, who's Deputy Director, Trade and Exchange CBN, Chief Ede Dafinone, who's Chairman, MAN Export Group, MAN being the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria's export group, Mr. Bamidele Ayemibo, who's the immediate past chairman, LCCI Export Group, Deputy Comptroller Darky, Deputy Comptroller, Nigerian Customs Service. I'm not sure he's joined us just yet. Oh, he's here. Excellent. And Mr. Adamu Barra Mohammed, who's team leader, Securities Issuance Unit, Portfolio Management Department of the DMO, the Debt Management Office. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Sanu, Ya Aiki, Kedu, Kedu to all of you, and Ekabo Sorietoyi. I wish you welcome, and I say big thank you that you've joined us today. And all protocols observed. I welcome you all to today's important discussion. Today is an opportunity for to bring the best minds in this area to interact and hopefully help to improve the implementation of the Export Expansion Grant, EEG. An EEG assessment. Today we're looking at an EEG assessment which provides evidence-based information on EEG implementation to guide relevant stakeholders in reforming and repositioning the scheme for greater effectiveness, was commissioned by PDF2, the precursor program to PDF Bridge, which today brings you this event through its trade policy work stream. The study analyzed the impact of the grant on beneficiaries prior to its suspension in 2013 and the post-suspension implementation from 2017. It also investigates the challenges faced by beneficiaries in their attempts to access the grant. Some critical recommendations that will be discussed today include: 1, it is imperative for the federal government of Nigeria to urgently settle the outstanding grants still owed to exporters to improve the export supply response and capacity of firms and boost exporters' interests in export business. 2, government should subject the scheme to thorough review for a comprehensive reform with clear implementation strategy and guidelines in order to permanently address the issues that have led to the truncation of implementation since inception. And 3, increased commitment in terms of investment to non-oil sector is fundamental to increasing non-oil exports in the mix of Nigeria's export basket. The government must increase budgetary allocation to EEG and similar incentives designed to grow non-oil export in Nigeria. These are just 3 of the recommendations from that report. So today we hope to achieve the following objectives: that is, give ourselves a forum where relevant stakeholders can discuss the findings of this study and its recommendation, and devise, through engagement and discussion, ways of improving things within this area, to develop an action plan that will actually enable our policymakers to drive progress. Therefore, this policy roundtable brings together trade-related government agencies and other relevant stakeholders who we hope will use the evidence provided from the study to drive a reform and restructure of the grant where necessary. It is therefore with great pleasure that I welcome you, and I wish every one of us very, very fruitful deliberations and a successful discussion. Thank you very much. You're most welcome, and I hand it back over to Sand.
Thank you very much, Dr. Titi Layo, for that excellent overview.
Titi Lola.
Titi Lola.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Titi Lola. I'm so sorry. I think it was I have a very close friend.
We understand. We understand. Don't worry.
I'm sorry about that. So thank you very much for that excellent overview and your welcome remark. It's highly appreciated. At this point, we'll move to the next agenda on the line of event that we're having today. Because we are pressed of time, we don't really have a lot of time. So I'm going to welcome the presenter of the study. Having appreciated the panelists that we have assembled, it's not easy to bring all the MDAs together, and as well as the private sector, to deliberate on this critical issue called EEG. That is the foundation of promoting non-oil exports. May I welcome Mr. Oluwafemi Boyede. He is the certified international trade professional, and he is the CEO of Kononia Ventures Nigeria Limited, and as well as the president of Nigerian Trade and Investment Center. He will give us a presentation, take us through it, how the methodology, the objective, and all the findings of the study that we are going to validate today. Mr. Boyede, are you ready? Do you have a slide to share?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and welcome my co-panelists as well as people joining us from all parts of, may I say, the world. I thank you, Dr. Titilola Akindende and your team. I joined SAND and of course the non-oil export sector of Nigeria in thanking you and your project for commissioning this study. My presentation will just be that, a summary of the impact assessment of the EEG scheme. Everything that I'm sharing is going to be what we found in the field when we went for this impact assessment. And just as the final part of my comments, I want to thank the various agencies, especially the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, that helped us, really helped us a lot to release data on the participants, without which we wouldn't have been able to do the sampling that we did. Thanks to Man Export Group and the other exporter associations. So I'm just going to proceed now to present the summary of the project, so to say. Dr. Titi mentioned some of the most important issues that we'll be talking about. Thank you. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an analysis and impact of the Export Expansion Grant Scheme on export potential, market access, and export competitiveness in Nigeria. This is the first public presentation of the outcome of the study commissioned by the PDF's team. The outline will have an introduction background that talks about the administration of the EEG, the business environment, and export performance benefits of the EEG. Quickly, I'll just mention the rationale, the approach, and we'll be looking at the study area and the footprints, and as well as the findings. So, Export Expansion Grant is one of the 3 support facilities established by the Nigerian government under the Export Incentives and Miscellaneous Act of 1986. Well, it was a decree at inception. There are some others, especially the Export Development Fund and Export Adjustment Scheme Fund. So that we don't lose sight of it, there were 18 incentives. We focused on the 3 that appear to be the most functional. By its design, EEG has been identified to be the most structured, most dependable, and the most functional of all the incentives. It was identified also in the ERGP of 2017 to 2020 as a key instrument of achieving the government's desired diversification of the economy. In practice, EEG is actually a post-shipment incentive established to achieve three key objectives. One, enable exporters to expand their exports and related business more conveniently. Two, make Nigerian non-oil export more competitive in the global markets. And three, facilitate greater and faster foreign market penetration. So we set out to compare the EEG process and implementation pre-2013 with what has obtained post-2017. Focused on determining the overall impact on beneficiaries' production capacity, the capacity to access and compete in the export market. Identify operational challenges associated with implementation, including the abuses leading to a suspension in 2013, and to provide recommendations on strategies to enhance non-oil export performance through the instrumentation of the Export Expansion Grant. And also, sorry about that, the maximum, to derive maximum benefits from the international market required minimization of costs associated with the production and export of exportable items from Nigeria. EEG has been recognized as the most structured, as I said earlier, of existing support schemes, but it has its own peculiar problems. The program has faced various administrative and technical conundrums over time, leading to its suspension of the scheme 9 times since inception. So the overall aim of this study is to provide the evidence-based information required to relevant exporter groups, policymakers, investors, and development support agencies in Nigeria. I've just read out the rationale for the study. Approach and scope included preliminary engagement with relevant agencies, that is the NEPC, the CBN, and NEXIM, review of secondary information data, sample selection, survey engagement with players in the non-oil export sector via questionnaires, focus group discussions, key informant interviews, analysis, that is comparison with other countries, and analyzing the information and data so that we could provide recommendations based on the analysis. So this map that I'm showing now represents the footprints of the EEG in Nigeria. In the green color in circles there, we're looking at the number of exporters per state. Just as an illustration, you will see that Lagos has 287, Kano has 72, Rivers has 9, Oyo has 9, Abuja is not left out, we had 6. And so just to show that this study actually was carried out across the country. And so we believe that we have a fair representation of players in the non-oil export sector responding to our engagement.
Mr. Boyede,
Yes, please.
Just a second. We have to move fast, as it were, because you have 5 minutes to go for the presentation. So if you can go to the methodology, and as well as engage us, make your presentation, especially recommendation. That would be helpful because the time you have 5 minutes more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Okay, so I will not be dwelling so much again. I'm sure that the panelists as well as participants eventually will get a copy of the full study, just to show you that it's a broad-based, cross-cutting study that we carried out. So I go straight to the key findings, and here I'll mention just a few. EEG is about competitiveness, so we had to look at Nigeria's challenges compared to other countries. This slide here looks at the cost of funds, and here you will see that Nigeria, by comparison with the other countries with which we measured impact, has a very, very high cost of fund, and therefore we find it difficult to compete. Cost of power, we also compared that with some of the competitors, and of course, Nigerian exporters face a bigger challenge. So we looked at trading across borders ranking, and you will see, even on this slide, how limited Nigerian exporters are in terms of chances to compete. So a few other of these slides actually give a very inceptive view of the challenges. So here we look at the distribution of the beneficiaries farms. This was important because part of the challenges of EEG is that they claim that it is actually in the hands of foreign-owned countries. So you can see that in the detailed report. So I'll just go. We asked exporters some key questions. Has EEG contributed to your export performance? And 75% of respondents actually confirmed that EEG has been a key driver. Has it contributed to export revenue? Again, here you will see the distribution of respondents, and it is actually a positive. 68% say yes. Has it helped to reduce the cost? Yes. The enabling results of EEG, market competitiveness, new market entry, and in each of these, you will see that EEG scores a higher percentage. Challenges are, again, cross-cutting. So we looked at beneficiaries and overall access in percentages, and you will find that on another slide. So let me just quickly go to what our key recommendations are. And the first is that government would do well to promptly settle all outstanding EEG claims as approved by the Federal Executive Council. I think the Nigeria Export Promotion Council secured Federal Executive Council approval for settlement of EEGs in the region of 350 billion. Of this settlement, there is a case for 38 companies who by omission or commission were excluded when the final list was being sent to the DMO. So there is also a case in our recommendations for the prompt payment of the benefits to these 38 companies. So EEG requires policy stability, predictability, and continuity. We recommended there should be an increase, at least growing year by year, to show that not only that export is growing, but to enable new exporters to come into the scheme. When we started in 2013, where we started from, EEG was at 30%. As of today, it is 15%. That's the reason why you have in bracket there, not decrease. So we also recommend development and implementation of pre-export market access support. You will remember that in my opening slides, I had defined the EEG as a post-shipment incentive. So you need to begin to export first before you can access the market. And this is where we make the case for the development of a new form of incentives that actually propels pre-shipment. So the creation and legislation of the Export Expansion Grant Fund. Let me take a second to explain this. The Export Provisions and Incentives and Miscellaneous Act actually is already a legislation. But in terms of the Export Expansion Grant, it has not been legislated. And that is the reason why we found out that it could have been subjected to all the somersaults. It is hanging out there. We believe that we need legislation. Then the Export Development Fund, which is actually supposed to be the pre-shipment incentive, we believe that it is time now to activate and endow it. It will help arrest the preponderance of policy somersaults, and then the full automation of the EEG application process. Again, it was after the submission of the report of this study, we are aware that the NEPC has gone very far in ensuring the automation of the application process. Now you submit your baseline data and applications online. We believe that we are at a point as a nation where we must either export, and by export, I'm not talking non-oil export, or perish. And the only way to ensure forex supply and shore up the exchange rate is to encourage export. Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment and other trade supporting institutions must synergize to grow the country's exports. And on that note, I complete the presentation, a very, very, very compressed version of the study on the impact of the Export Expansion Grant. I come back to you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Dr. Titi, once again, and the PDF Bridge for commissioning this study. We were happy to have carried it out to this extent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boyede, for that presentation. As you can see, he has taken us through a number of issues and as well as profile recommendation. EG has been around for a long time, and one of the key recommendations is creating a legislation of export expansion grant. So I'm going to start my question and deliberation, this discussion with the panel. So I'm just going to give a little bit of introduction to all the panel, even while Dr. Titi has welcomed all the panelists when she made her opening remark. But just allow me to just reintroduce them. Dr. Lawal Danhat is a Deputy Director, NEPC Incentive Division. And we also have Mrs. Chika Nwago, Deputy Director, Trade and Exchange, CBN. We have Chief Ede Dafinone, the Chairman, Manufacturing Association Export Group, MANEC. We have Mr. Bamidele Ayomibo. He is the immediate past chairman. He is the immediate past chairman of Lagos Chambers of Commerce Export Group, and he is also the lead consultant for Treaty Impex. We have Deputy Controller Daki HY. He is the Deputy Controller, Nigerian Customs Service. Last but not the least, Mr. Adamu Bara Muhammad. He is the Team Lead, Security Exchange Unit and Portfolio Management, DMO. So you agree with me that the people who have in the panel will do justice to our conversation today. So I'm going to start my question with NEPC, because NEPC, by all indication, by law, are in the forefront of promoting non-oil exports. And EEG number one reason for setting up EEG is to be able to support non-oil exports. Mr. Lawal, we have seen that over the years, EEG has been suspended several times and been brought back to reintroduce. And in recent time, we've seen the drop of non-oil exports. And in the recommendation at the same time, there has been recommendation for support for pre-export. What is NEPC doing at this moment, even with the post-COVID, to support non-oil exports, to increase the non-oil exports of Nigeria? We're having difficult time, but is there anything put in place to help non-oil exporters benefit and as well as be competitive in this new era of post-COVID-19? Mr. Lawal.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Let me correct something, because I heard you calling me Dr. Lawal the other time. And I'm not sure I've got, yes, but very soon, I guess. Well, thank you very much. Well, let me start by saying we want to express our appreciation to the PDF for actually carrying out this study. We've gone through the study, and Mr. Boyede has done justice to the report and the presentation he made. And I'm glad at least NEPC played a role in the development of the report itself. Well, going to your question, well, the council has actually done a lot in terms of trying to promote non-oil exports. But the problem associated with export generally goes beyond what the NEPC can actually do by itself. There are so much issues entangled or associated with these things. Well, basically, as it is now, with looking at what happened, I mean, bringing back the issue of the COVID itself that you brought up and the problems that are faced by the exporters, the NEPC has actually been part of the technical committee that prepared or made presentation to the federal government regarding the way forward and what assistance the government can be able to actually give to exporters to overcome the issues regarding the problems that are being faced by the exporters and the downward trend in terms of export figures. And it culminated in part of the recommendations or some of the things that government is trying to now implement in the export, in the economic stimulation plan by the government, where some funds have been made available for to assist exporters and other manufacturers and companies in order to be able to overcome some of these problems. Even though a provision, I think about 50 billion has been made for this, but not directly in the hands of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, but through the ministry and some agencies under the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, where once the implementation commences, exporters too will be able to benefit directly through these things. And then looking at the other issues, especially regarding the figures that have been going down, there has to be, all hands must be on deck in order to actually encourage exporters to be able to export without much hindrances. One major issue which I believe is a major problem is, one, when you look at the issues of our port itself and the infrastructure issues, which needs to be really tackled within a very short time, because a lot of our exporters actually face a lot of problem trying to access the ports. It takes you 2-3 days for goods from the north to get to Lagos. But between Lagos and the port, it takes over 3 to 4 weeks for the goods to get to the port. This is a major problem for a lot of our exporters. And then another thing that will also need to be addressed or to be looked into, which NEPC is also working towards, is also the issue of the Forex itself. In terms of, in fact, I want to mention this. Recently, our office was invited, our CEO was invited by the Presidential Economic Advisory Council to make a presentation to the council in order to, bring out major issues that is being faced by the exporters. And the presentation was actually made by our CEO, where all these issues were highlighted to the council. And another major issue that was really brought out during that discussion was the issue of unfreighted access to export proceeds by exporters, where we feel, and on the part of the council, is that it's not as if export is not really taking place, but by the time you bring about disincentive in the sense that an exporter cannot actually access his export proceeds when he repatriates a legitimate business, and then you are now forced to discount your proceeds to the bank at official rate when these are not considered when you are making your purchases and your exports, it causes a lot of problem, because this for us and on the part of the council more or less discourages exporters from engaging in formal exports, because the gap between the official and the black market rate is so huge that exporters are losing a lot. But that is on another side. But coming back to the EEG and the issues, what the NEPC has actually been doing, we've actually moved in several angles and several areas, trying to actually promote and see that we have a seamless processing of and execution or administration of the scheme. Because the review that took place in 2005, well, even though it's not initiated, but the 2013 review that would have actually taken place, which was not completed, was also as a result of an initiative by the NEPC, and it's all in an attempt to actually be able to address major issues hindering the smooth administration of the scheme and to ensure continuity and sustainability of the scheme. We also were in the forefront in the review in 2016-2017, where the rates were scaled down in order to make the scheme sustainable and for government to be able to afford to continue with the scheme. And then budgetary provision was also introduced in order to address the problems of agencies, the utilizing agencies, especially then the custom that was the NDCCs. Now with the introduction of the export credit certificate, where it's used for tax as a tax incentive, this were done, the budgetary provision was introduced in order to also curtail the problem that we had in the previous scheme, where agencies like FIRS and the other agencies like the banks that were also brought in the utilization process will now be able to be settled behind the scheme, behind the scene when payments are made, so that at least it doesn't affect their revenue collection. But we've already started with that, and it's also having its own problems along the way, especially in terms of funding and stuff. But at least that government has actually been trying to address that issue. So these are areas where the council has actually been moving towards addressing these issues. And then coming to the issue of the backlogs, we were able to also intervene, where federal government now approved a submission of about 350 billion for the settlement of backlogs from 2007 to 2016, where the DMO was now brought in and promissory notes were now introduced for the settlement. Even though the report also captured the issue of some companies that were not able to scale through, but the fact is part of the process was that the National Assembly is supposed to approve whatever was presented by the FEC, and then along the way through the review process, some companies were not passed. But that too, we're also working on that with the Federal Ministry of Finance trying to see how this thing can be addressed and for the others to be also quickly included and paid within a short time.
Okay, so
I'm seeing the moderator as
Mr. Lawal.
Yes, please.
Mr. Lawal, thank you very much for that insight. But I just want to just dwell a little more on the finding, one of the findings in the study that says 38 companies were excluded. How were they excluded? You did mention that some companies did not meet up the requirement. Can you please dwell more? Because why I want you to dwell more on this is there an issue of confidence, there is issue of trust. When businesses see that something X is suffering from an area without clarity, that creates some kind of people pulling back from doing what they need to do. So that's why informal export goes up. Can you please dwell more on what really happened? And secondly, you did mention 50 billion given to the Federal Ministry of Industry, which is your parent ministry, of course. Is this money supposed to be part of ESG or is outside ESG? Which of the agency is in charge of this money? Let us,
Okay. Let me start. Yes, please. I will start with that. Your last question. That, like I said, is under our ministry, but through some of the agencies of the ministry, like Bank of Industry, NEGS and NEGZIM. Those are the agencies that are directly involved in terms of the utilization or disbursement of those funds. And I think they are coming with the procedure on to the issue of the 38 companies. Like I started mentioning the other time, and there's a procedure by which the NEPC or the executive side does not have control over. The process is submission was made through the Federal Ministry of Finance to the Federal Executive Council, where it now approved the submission of the backlogs, totaling about 350, involving about over 1,400 companies. This was now brought back and submitted to the National Assembly for its own assents, because these are funds that are going to be expended by the federal government. So an approval was needed by the federal government from the National Assembly, both chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives. As part of their processes, they conducted some kind of verification exercise and invited the exporters. We don't have control over that particular aspect of the verification that took place. Out of that total of 1,000 companies, 270 out of that were approved and submitted to finance or to the executive and then to DMO. And between that two, there are about 38 companies that actually came out to indicate that their names had not been approved as at then. The other remaining 1,000 plus didn't even come up because maybe, well, their claims are small or whatever, but they didn't even come up. But the major ones that actually the 38 are the ones that are major players too within the scheme. Because as far as the NEPC was concerned, we were part of all those appearances before the National Assembly in support of our exporters to ensure that at least everybody is approved and every claim is also paid by and submitted and paid even by the DMO. But like I said, it's beyond our control. There was no way we could, they had their processes, and it wasn't as if they gave any reason to us personally, no report was given to us. We only received communication from the Ministry of Finance indicating that this number of companies had been approved and passed by the National Assembly, and the remaining ones had not been passed. So that is the situation as it is. But we're still working, in fact, with the private sector and other government agencies to ensure that at least the National Assembly reconsiders those companies that had not been passed by the National Assembly in order for them to also benefit from their legitimate claims. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you because you did mention the area of you don't know if their claim was small or high. Does that determine what one gets back when one makes an export? No. But I'll come back to that.
No.
I'll come back to you on that. So I'll just go to Mrs. Chika. I'll go to Mrs. Chika. Mrs. Chika is with the CBN. She is the Deputy Director of Trade and Exchange with the CBN. Mrs. Chika, we've talked about repatriation of funds and forex. What is the issue with the repayment? So someone exports, and that is the mandate. You export, you repatriate your fund, you get your repayment. Why has it lingered on? We understand some might be held for the past 10 years. What exactly is the issue? Can you please provide clarification on this? Because with the finding, some exporters are feeling there is no need to go through the former. Let's just export, use our money, and not depend on EEG. What is the delay? What is the challenge? Can you please provide us insight on that?
Okay, good morning or good afternoon. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you to the PDF for organizing this roundtable discussion. If I get you right, you said, what is the issue with, is it the repayment for EEG claims or repatriation? I want to get that right.
The repayment, one repatriates, and there is no fund, and it has lingered for almost 10 years. People have been owed for repatriating. Is it that when they repatriate, CPN does not inform the appropriate authority? Or what is the issue?
Actually,
when people repatriate, why they not pay?
The EEG fund is different from repatriation because an exporter, when you have exported your goods through the formal means, you're supposed to repatriate, okay? And you repatriate through the domiciliary accounts which you have opened with your bank. And the funds you will use for eligible items, you could put it back, maybe buy machinery and all that through your banks. And then you can also get your fund again through the I&E window, that is the investors and exporters window. You can access your funds there. And that's a very competitive market where you can get your money. It's not the same as the official rate. It's not fixed. Many times it's even higher than that official window, which people have complained about. It's meant to be a very competitive period. Unfortunately, since this the pandemic and all, and a lot of things, the global crisis, we are not exporting as we should. Our main source of revenue, which is the oil prices have crashed. So this has also affected the exchange rate. That's why the black market seems to be doing much better. Otherwise, if you all recall, sometime last year, people even preferred to go to the I&E window than the black market because the prices were almost the same. And as central bank, we are doing all we can to try and make sure we harmonize these rates. And on the EEG fund, it's actually funded through the federal government. The federal government does a budgetary allocation every year towards this fund. And over the years, we've seen that the budgetary allocation is never enough. And unfortunately, due to the protocols of how it's organized, the people that are actually doing the budget is the Federal Ministry of Industry and Trade. Meanwhile, people managing this EEG fund is the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. So there is that, they don't have that, there's a kind of lacuna, and they are not marrying themselves. So this has caused a lot of problems because what they budget is usually way below what the exporters actually need. In fact, sometime last year, the permanent secretary, the Minister of Federal Ministry of Finance and Budget, constituted a committee which involved the NEPC, the Federal Ministry of Industry and Trade, OPEXA, Budget Office of the Federation, and CBN, for us to look into ways of funding, additional ways of funding the EEG. And the committee met about 3 times, and we came up with a proposal, and the report has been submitted to the Federal Ministry of Finance. So because we've seen that the budgetary allocation has not been enough, and we are hoping that part of the recommendations will be carried out. And when this is carried out, then we'll be able to, the funding for the EEG will be much improved, and people will be paid as when due. We made other proposals, even including the accounts that is opened towards these funds and all that. So the report was very covered a lot of grounds, and we hope that it will be looked into. And I think there is a representative of Federal Ministry of Finance here, so that maybe remind the minister, let this be looked at so that we would overcome some of the problems with this fund. And on the part of CBN, we have done a few initiatives to try and improve the export sector. We've encouraged backward integration. Recently, there was a circular that was issued to encourage the manufacturers of dairy products, that has invested a lot in backward integration. So we encourage them to be the ones to do some imports of implements to grow that sector. So these are things we've done, and there are other loans and facilities which CBN from time to time through development finance have been put out there for exporters to access these funds at low rates so that they can grow their business. And we all know that, that last year, October, the Nigerian trade monitoring system, we automated the form NXP, which is a form every exporter has to fill before they do an export. So from the comfort of their homes, they can just log into the URL and apply for the export, and at least initiate that process before it goes to the bank and all that. So these are some of the things we have done in Central Bank to encourage export.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chika Nwagu. Can you please talk us through the repatriation policy of the CBN? Mr. Lawal once said during his own submission that someone exports and repatriates fund, and CBN wants the person to use to retrieve the money using the government's government-owned rates. How does that work? Can you please talk more on the repatriation of funds?
Maybe you did not get me when I talked on it. I said that when you initiate your export, and everything you've done the exports, and then normally when you open initiate an export, you must open a domiciliary account into which the funds will be repatriated. Okay, so when these funds are repatriated, like I said, the exporter can use it to buy equipment that would even help his business, or if he wants to access his funds, he is free to go to the I&E window, which is the investors and exporters window, which is more competitive than the official rates, which we use for eligible items, which eligible items can come to access. So it's not, I won't say they get it, they sell it to them at the official window. So mark you, if you want to buy your implements for your business, you can use the same fund to do that. We won't stop you from doing that. But when you now want to get the cash, you get it at that competitive rate. People go there and like I tried to explain was that the reason why it seems as if that window is much lower now is because of the global crisis in the economy, in the world now. The price of oil went down, and this has affected our income.
Okay, thank you very much.
Affected the exchange rate at the black market. But we, as an exporter, you access that window. If you see it is I&E, investors and exporters window. So it's a competitive window.
Thank you very much. Let me just remind our participants that you can type your question even while the panelists make their submission. We can get it out during the Q&A time. May I go to the DC Danke, the Deputy Controller of Custom. Can you hear me all right?
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So you can hear me. So my next question is to you, sir.
Yes.
So over the years, EEG has been suspended, reintroduced, suspended, reintroduced, and one of the reasons why it was suspended, reintroduced, is because there is corruption. People export and repatriating that fund. There are a lot of back end thing happening. So I want you to give us an overview of what custom role is for non-oil exports. How is custom ensuring that the system is corruption free? How is custom ensuring that the real exporters export their goods, repatriate their money, and as well as go through the normal process?
Well, thank you very much, participants, and good afternoon. As you heard from the as you heard from the speaker that I'm Mr. Derki HY. Actually, as you said, how is export being tackled by custom and how is it corruption free? I don't think there is much custom has to do, as long as maybe factory owner have his items to export. Mostly these things are duty free, so I don't know how corruption comes into something that is duty free, or less few levies that you can pay in. So I doubt it much if there is anything like corruption in custom in terms of exports. Maybe I would like to emphasize the fact that we, apart from the logistic problem exporters are having getting access to the seaport, when coming to custom at the seaport, we don't have much problem. We just, as long as your documents are okay and there is no much problem, you're free as air to go. So how do custom involve in corruption in this thing? I think that's what I have to say for now.
Okay, so it's not about custom being corrupt. It's about a system that has been put in place over the years. Whenever it's suspended, government make reference to corruption is the reason. And I wanted to find out, basically participants and everyone wants to know, is it that custom does not check and when they do the export or the documentation? Because it's not about custom being corrupt. It's about the system. What is the role of custom in terms of promoting non-oil export? For us to not to have the same issue of corruption is always the issue. Where is it? Where is that challenge? How is custom supporting the system?
No, I would like to debunk that notion that custom are corrupt in the process. I would rather think about why the process is being on and off. And I would like to say to encourage, I would like this forum, PDF, to encourage the government on serious participation on this system. As you can look, let me tell you, from 2017, budgeted amount was 20 billion and approved one is 16 billion, and no 1 naira was allocated to EEG. In 2018, 19 billion was budgeted and only 13 billion was approved, and 4.06 billion was released. In 2019, 5.2 billion was budgeted, only 3.2 billion was approved, and only 200 million was released. So up to the end of this year, so if you see, there is no consistency in releasing the funds to the beneficiaries. I don't know where the problem comes, but I would like to put these questions on the beneficiaries, more especially to CBN representative and NHPCD, Mr. Dalhatu, if you can clear this allegation or maybe assertion from me. So I don't think custom have problem in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So I will move over to Chief Ede Dafinone. Chief Ede, you are the chairman of Manufacturer Association Export Group, which is a private sector. As a matter of fact, these are exporters. And in one of the over time, I think the repayment, resettlement of EEG, your members go through this challenge regularly, and they are still undergoing this challenge with the reject. I guess most of them will be your members, and the 38 companies that were excluded. What would be your recommendation to the government in settling this backlog? I know DMO is here. They will respond after your comments. There are questions for them. What is, as a private sector, what would you advise government?
Thank you, Mr. Mba. I'd like also to thank the PDF for putting together this forum and also for commissioning the study by Koinonia Ventures Limited. I'm happy also to see today that we have participation here from CBN, DMO, Customs. I'm not sure whether we have anybody from either the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Trade and Investment present, but I believe that would have been useful. But notwithstanding that, I'm sure the report will be made available to them at the appropriate time. Before I address the issues of the 38 excluded and the funding, I'd just like to draw some attention to the study that we have been presented with today. First of all, an excellent study by Femi Boyede and his team. Highlighting the problems exporters are having and the need for government to encourage more actively non-oil export. The statement made earlier today that oil revenues will decline and it's important for us as a country to focus on non-oil exports is critical. It's covered in the ERGP, but from the report, our discussions and information available to me, there is need for government to focus much more on non-oil export. For the report, just briefly, I'd have liked to have seen more analysis of products and trends over the years that would have shown more clearly the three key factors: export potential, market access, and export competitiveness. My belief being, and this is from feedback from my members, that an analysis that looked at the historical penetration, potential, competitiveness of different products. And this information, I believe, is readily available through the NEPC records. That analysis would have shown very, very clearly that over the years, as a result, partly also of the export expansion grant, Nigeria has made great strides in penetrating new markets, developing new products, and increasing the export components of a large number of products over that period. And there is a need, therefore, to continue to encourage exporters, existing exporters and companies that would be coming into the market Let me look at the funding requirements going forward. Firstly, the lady from CBN mentioned that there was a team commissioned to look at funding. I have to say that that report is urgent. Government has been unable to fund the EEG over the past 6-7 years now. The figures read out by the gentleman from Customs highlights the size of the problem, where we have significant amounts budgeted. The amounts actually approved are much less. And yet again, the amounts released are then nothing to write home about. And still, there is a significant amount of EEG that remains unpaid, even with the amounts released and the amounts budgeted. It is a far cry from the amounts required to sustain the EEG going forward and to give the exporting economy any confidence that government is committed to encouraging non-oil exports, even with the rhetorics that we keep hearing that there is a need for government to support. I have to say that behind all of this, even where funding is not available for export expansion grant and similar programs, we keep hearing of government initiating new schemes in order to encourage non-oil export. But the scheme that is shown historically to be successful in increasing non-oil export has not been funded. And this gives exporters a great deal of concern. The common thinking in government is that the export expansion grant is free money to exporters, is being abused by exporting companies that are beneficiaries, is not correct at all. I will admit that in any system there will be companies that are taking advantage of the system fraudulently. But we say to government over the years, over the last 10, 15 years, please fish out those companies, make examples of them to stop this rumor Government has stopped the scheme 9 or 10 times over the last 15 or so years. And yet, no company has been prosecuted for any fraudulent claims. And yet we continue to hear that the scheme is fraught with fraud, and therefore it is being stopped yet again. On the issue of free money, I make the argument to government continuously that where an investor is able to generate a super profit by making an investment in export, should he now receive additional funding through the export expansion grant, he has a choice of whether to invest that money in stocks and shares, land, property, or just squander it. But economic behavior means that every reasonable, rational investor who receives his super profit will be pushed, driven, encouraged to invest it in the venture that yielded the super profit in the first place, which automatically means that so my call to government, my call to the PDF is that we need to show government in very clear terms that the encouraging of non-oil export is critical to our long-term economic survival. And any investment we are making in such schemes like the EEG is important for the survival of the export sector and the potential growth that we need in order to be a viable economy long-term, past the days of oil. I'd like to address the issues on the promissory note scheme. We have been told here today, I am aware as chairman of the Man Export Group, but that 350 billion was made available for exporters to pay claims on export expansion grants, covering the period 2007 to 2016. Firstly, 38 companies have been left behind. There is absolutely no basis for excluding the 38 companies. The companies excluded are some of the best, largest, most profitable multinationals within the Nigerian space. And I want to reemphasize the point here again that the fact that a beneficiary of the EEG is a multinational does not mean that that money is going abroad. Again, a multinational company that receives a super profit as a result of EEG will be encouraged to invest in the Nigerian export market in order to earn future super profits. And this is what we need to expand growth in non-oil. And therefore, the fact that it is a multinational company should not stand in the way of the government encouraging such companies.
Chief, you can be running up your point. You can start running up your submission.
Okay, so I'd like to round up by looking also at one or two other points raised. There was talk of the need for legislation for the EEG to ensure funding. I'm not sure if that would be the case. My discussions with NEPC over the years shows that there's legislation on funding for NEPC, where funds from NIMASA are meant to be committed to supporting the NEPC. And despite legislation in that direction, the government is yet to make such funding available to NEPC. So I don't believe it is a lack of legislation issue. I believe it is a need for government to appreciate the importance of non-oil export and commit to funding it long term in order for exports to be further generated. The last point I'd like to make is on the promissory notes. 350 billion committed by government to settling old claims by promissory notes. These claims arise from the period 2007 to 2016. However, by the time you discount the claims, as has been done by the DMO, as has been done by the National Assembly, and to some extent also the NEPC, the exporters under the MAN export group are seeing that they are receiving approximately 20 to 30% of the value of the claims that they made in the first place. And this is without allowing for any depreciation in the value of the currency or inflation over that period. So exporters are being significantly shortchanged by government in the promissory note process. The logic government has is that, forgive me, half bread is better than no bread. But at the same time, where government has a commitment to settle a grant that they have promised to pay and is settling the grant at 50% or 30% of the promised value, then of course the value of the government's promise to pay in future scenarios is greatly reduced, and it will affect that further policy and other policies in that direction. I will stop there because of time, but there are still many more issues on exports, and I would like to again thank the PDF for enabling this platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Ede Dafidone. My next panelist is DMO, Mr. Adamu. Mr. Adamu, we understand that DMO is now the agency charged with the responsibility of settling outstanding debts. And we do understand that the backlog, and Chief Ede has also pointed out the issue of promissory note discount. Before the promissory note discount, there was an issue of a reverse auction process. I believe it was suspended. Can you please tell us what is the process of DMO? What are the processes in place for settling this outstanding debt? 350 billion from 2007 to 2015, according to Chief Ede, that is the amount 350 is to settle. When will you start settling from 2016 upward? Reason why I'm asking this question, we are trying to promote non-oil export, and it's important, I will emphasize again, it's important we make, sorry, my camera is off, so I'm just turning it on now. It's important we put most of these issues in the open, so it brings clarity before exporters, so they know what they're going in for. Exporter cannot export with expectation of repaying, because one of the reasons why EEG was set up in the first place, we have issue of infrastructural deficit. We have issue of our competitiveness. We want to promote non-export. And an exporter invests, export his products or his goods, and want to repatriate money, it takes this long. Can you please just give us, I know it's a whole lot we need to talk, this time is not enough, but I would appreciate if you hit the point just as it is.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Let me start by actually putting in context the involvement of DMO in the entire, promissory note program, and then in specific settling the EEG claims. In 2017, the Federal Executive Council approved a promissory note program to settle outstanding debt obligation of the government worth over about 3.3 trillion naira, of which the EEG claim is just about 350, like the chief rightly said. As is the process, the DMO cannot issue any debt instrument without the approval of the National Assembly. So to that extent, Mr. President presented the approval of the Federal Executive Council to NAS in 2000, well, I can't remember the exact period, but basically it was presented to the 8th National Assembly, out of which some of the claims were approved while others are still outstanding. Like Alhad from NEPC rightly said too, the DMO will not actually second guess why some of the claims are approved while others are not. So like I said, EEG claim was 350 billion. That was what was submitted to the National Assembly. That's approved by FEC. But what has been approved by National Assembly and sent to Ministry of Finance and then ultimately forwarded to the DMO for settlement was about 195 billion for 270 exporters. So to that extent, the DMO doesn't know about any other exporter that is not in this 270, because the process is, the Fiscal Responsibility Act is very clear. For DMO to issue any instrument, there must be approval of the National Assembly, because it's like, taking it as a debt obligation on the part of the government, now securitizing it. So that is actually what happened. So we don't know why we have 270 instead of the large number of companies that was initially approved by the Federal Executive Council. And to add to the, peculiarity of the circumstance of why up to now it has not been approved for the other exporters, not only for the exporters, because like I said, there are 13 categories of creditors for that 3 trillion naira. But only about 3 or 4 categories have been approved by a National Assembly to date. What about a trillion naira, about 1.5 trillion out of the 3.3? So we don't know what happened. But as it is, we have approval for those categories and we have settled, including the exporters that has been approved. So what delayed it further, to my mind, is that the National Assembly operates on, 8th National Assembly, 9th National Assembly. So with the expiration of the previous National Assembly, the entire submission to the President, to the previous Assembly, is no longer useful or cannot be used by the 9th Assembly. So there is a need for resubmission. So that is, to my mind, what delayed further the approval of, the other, that has not been approved. But like I said, why we have this different approval for some categories and others not approved, we don't know, because the DMO doesn't actually request for the approval. The President requests for the approval, and the National Assembly, based on their discretion, approve others, and that is what we have. The Federal Executive Council approval is with an implementation process. The implementation process are very clear. One, among others, the claim should be reviewed by an international accounting firm. And then secondly, the claim should be settled through a reverse auction. Mm-hmm. I heard you, Mr. Amba, talking about whether the reverse auction has been suspended. Well, the reverse auction has not been suspended. I think there is waiver for, even from the council memo, there is waiver for the reverse auction for some categories of creditors, of which the exporters is not one of them. I think about 1 or 2 categories of creditors where the reverse auction was waived for them. So the implementation process requires the document of the claims to be reviewed by an international accounting firm, and then the settlement to be done through a reverse auction. Based on that, whatever has been approved for the exporters by National Assembly has been subjected to that review by international accounting firm, to be specific, KPMG. And based on the review, I think, some, minor, to be fair, irregularities that they observed were set aside, and then what has been verified has been settled. And the review actually took a very long period of time, because look, when NEPC submitted the documents for the review initially to us, it was tons and tons of document actually in Hilux, Toyota Hilux, and a very large amount of document. And because some of these claims were dated, there are some missing documentation. So instead of just after one review to write up that, okay, now we've not seen your document, if we review it and we observe some irregularities, we go back to the exporters through the NEPC to say, look, the auditors have observed A, B, C, and D. We need additional documents so that we can clear this claim of the exporters. Of course, the claim includes what do you call it, the NDCCs, is it NDCCs they call it? Yes, and the documents that are not yet, reach the NDCCs level. So for the NDCCs, basically all the auditors require is to ensure that if you said you have an NDCC of, let's say, 2 billion, they should count the amount to ensure that, yes, there is an outstanding NDCC of 2 billion, and then that one doesn't require any additional documentation, because for you to have an NDCC, that means you have all the documentation previously. But if it is yet to reach the NDCC level, they will make sure that all the relevant document that is required for you to actually be issued at NDCC are there before they can say your claim are verified. And like I said, why it took a very long period of time is because of discrepancies in documentation, missing document, and so on and so forth. But to date, we have actually cleared substantially, the 270 exporters that has been approved by the National Assembly. On the issue of the reverse auction, like I said, it is embedded in the approval by the Federal Executive Council that the claim should be settled through a reverse auction. So we are only implementing what has been approved. The Debt Management Office, that's why we are even involved in the first place. Otherwise, we have, of course, before now, we are not in any way involved with the NEPC, whether in the process of issuance of the NDCCs or anything. So we are only implementing what has been approved, and the reverse auction is very, very clear and straight to the point. Basically, the expectation is, like I said, this claim is about 3-point-something trillion naira that has been approved by the Federal Executive Council. Some of them are contractors that have actually done job for the government, dating back to the 1990s and early 2000s, are waiting for their payment to be made. Some of them were distressed, just like, some of the exporters, closing shop and so on and so forth. So all of these people are really genuine claims that need to be settled. But the fact of the matter is we are all aware that I don't think there is any 3.3 trillion naira cash somewhere that the government has available to settle this claim. It's inherited, but this government wants to settle it one way or the other. So basically we have 3.3 and then, we are trying to settle it. So the government said, okay, for us to settle, you have to give us a discount. So the exporters now bid by giving a discount to the government, and then basically based on that, we actually get a weighted average discount so that, we actually issue the promissory note to the exporters. So that is what actually happened as far as the reverse auction is concerned. So it is the implementation process that has been approved, and DMO is only implementing it, and DMO is also only settling claims that has been approved by the National Assembly. Okay. Like Allard said, sorry, let me, before you intervene, like Allard said, there are efforts on the ground to ensure that the backlog of the other exporters, not only the exporters, like I said, it's only 1.5 trillion out of the 3 that has been approved. So the entire thing is going back to the National Assembly. Like I said, with the termination of the previous assembly, it has to be represented. So there are efforts to represent, but what is further delaying it is some of these claims have either been paid somehow for the contractors, not for the exporters. So there is a need to actually ensure that what we are representing to the National Assembly is what is still outstanding to date. Because for the contractors, after the claim has been approved by FEC, the ministries, sometimes when they get money, they actually say, okay, this is your claim, we are paying you part of it. So that claim is no longer outstanding, part of it. So basically there is a need to disaggregate what has been settled from what is still outstanding to that before the representation. And unfortunately, for those that have not been approved, it's been delayed because of some of these processes. So I think I'll stop here, whether the explanation I made is sufficient for
Thank you very much, Mr. Adam. Okay, so you said a lot, because as a matter of fact, you are in the storm, or you are the eye in the storm. Yes. You are the main person in this settlement of EEG. You've raised a lot of points, and you've also given a lot of explanation. One of the recommendations of the study is that to create an endowment fund for export development. Do you think this will help? Because if you are still settling 2007 to 2016, what happened from 2017 to date?
Well, I will support anything that will actually, stop us from having this backlog. Because look, if we have this backlogged and then we issue promissory note, what happened is that because we are not giving cash, so that whatever we settle increase to the quantum of debt we have, you understand, as far as effect. So any endowment fund, I don't know how it will be funded though, you understand, because from what I have, from my understanding, why the EEG scheme, like any other program of government presently, due to this paucity of revenue here and there, you have a very beautiful program that requires funding. In fact, in some cases, the government even approved some of the funding in the budget, but at the end of the day, it may not be cash back because of, there is no sufficient fund for the government, to actually finance all the things it has approved in the budget. So any endowment fund, that will actually create something, that will actually bring in revenue into a particular pot that will be used to, incentivize, the non-exports and non-oil exporters. I think it's a welcome development as far as we are concerned, because we having the backlog is impacting negatively on our
on non-oil exports. It's impacting negatively on our diversification agenda.
Exactly.
Even why, because of time, I have to move to Mr. Bamidele. I would like to find out what was the parameter or the working to arrive on the average used in paying the promissory note. But maybe I'll come back to that. I'll come back to you on that. Let me just ask Mr. Bamidele. Mr. Bamidele, Mr. Bamidele, are you with us?
Yes.
You heard everybody talking about EEG. You've heard everybody giving their own view, and as well as expressing their practical experience on what. So, do you think there is a need for reform, and what kind of reform should we be looking at?
It's like you read my mind. My opinion is that if what we are working with, we've had to come in, go out, stop it for many years. I mean, the question we should first ask ourselves is, are we interested in growing export? If we are interested in growing export and we feel some people are taking advantage of the EEG, which I think is true, because I heard, I think one of the reports saying about 1,000 company, what's the name? I don't know if it's 1,000 transaction, if it's 1,000 different company claiming, I think there's an issue with it. If I'm going to work with the data available in Nigeria today as per number of companies legitimately exporting every year, if you have 1,000 company claiming EEG, I think there's an issue with it. I might be wrong. I'm just working based on data. Data with MBS, data with, what's the name? The inspection agents that do this export. If you look at all those data, people that legitimately export every year that process NS are not up to 1,000 every year. So if you have more than 1,000 companies, not more than 1,000 transactions, I will have issue with that. So the concern of government, I think, is legitimate to some extent. Like Chief definitely said, you can't throw away the baby with the bathwater. That some people are bad does not mean everybody is bad. So I think we should find a balance. So I'm of the opinion that if our interest is to grow export, can we focus on other programs that will encourage export? For example, can we look at other things? Because the goal of EEG is to make us more competitive by giving incentive that will make me to, I can sell at a 5% profit, but I know I will get additional from government to cover other profit I will have made on that transaction. Can we look for other way of helping us to be able to grow the export, expand the export? I'm thinking some people are just milking the government the way we have had also under the oil subsidy scam. Now, number one, can we do export credit insurance? I recommended before the Nexim Bank do something in that direction, but I have an issue what Nexim Bank did. Nexim Bank did export credit insurance only for political risk, not for commercial risk. That means it's not going to increase where we can export to, such that at the end of the day, we can increase our export volume and then by that way become more competitive. Can we consider pre-export incentive? The government can say, okay, because your cost of doing business is high, when you export, based on your export, I'm going to pay this percentage of the transport. So if I ship by air, I have an airway bill that I ship, the weight is there, the amount I pay to the airline is there, and government, I'm paying maybe 50%, the government pay the balance to the airline. So that what government is paying for, government can trace it to a transaction, to a good, to a shipment, and then we can avoid all these issues. For me, I think what is important is that we need to support export. If government is concerned about the fact that, okay, the money is too much, we are spending, can you come up with a budget? If you're going to spend 20 billion, what are you going to put it into? Can we do a pre-export incentive so we can see exactly where the money is going? Also, CBN has come up with this single-digit loan, but not everybody has been able to access it. Can we reduce the requirement for those export such that at the end of the day, the single digit can be accessed so that if my cost of fund is low, that will also make me more competitive because the goal is let's be more competitive to be able to export. And lastly, the issue of iron window raised by Mrs. Chika, which I must commend what CBN is doing, I am of the opinion when we start iron window, you know, and it's interesting how CBN solved the problem 4 years ago. 4 years ago, iron window was 360. 360 when the parallel market was over 400, but CBN rate was about 305, 315 or thereabout. So there was about 14 naira, 45 naira between window and the official rate. Today, all of them are between 380, 385. That's a disincentive. I did an article 2 weeks ago that analyzing a typical product, how the price has gone up and how the export has become non-competitive and even at a loss for some transaction because I'm forced to sell at 380. CBN can do the same thing they did 4 years ago. Can we do about 400 or 420 so that at the end of the day, you know, if everybody come to that CBN window, the price will crash because that's what happened that time. When CBN did 360, all the people doing 400, everybody came back. We were now between 360 and 365. Can we do something like that this time around rather than saying everybody should sell at a rate that is not profitable? And I must say this, a lot of Nigerians are beginning to look at exporting from outside the country. They will buy the product in the north and ship it out to the north to other neighboring country and ship it out from neighboring country because they won't do NSP there. They will bring in their money and they won't have to be shipping at a loss. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is awesome. So I'm going to ask Mr. Lawal. Mr. Lawal, I'm going to ask you this question. Because when you do one thing and when you do the same thing over the time, you start wondering, this issue of backlog, what is the benefit of the government, the EEG? What are they benefiting from this? Because it's going to be clear. We have to be clear about this thing. If you're not benefiting, is the government for that Christmas? Because if you keep on complaining, you don't have money to settle someone that does exports, then there's an issue. Are you giving people free money, or why you do EEG? Or is it different from what you stated in the paper? Can you please explain before we open up the line for people to make their question, to ask a question and contribute as well?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, you know,
hello?
Government basically. Sorry, can you hear me? I'm saying government basically, when you look even from the report itself, it identified 3 major things that government wants to achieve with the EEG: to expand our basket of incentives and to be competitive. You understand? So basically, these are the things that government wants to achieve. And when you look at it, the cost of production in this country is very high. And we want our exporters to be competitive in the international market, for us to access and be able to expand our exports. So if you are to assist exporters, you have to do something that will actually encourage them and be able to compete favorably in the international market. So that's why the EEG is there, to be able to caution all these factors that are militating against the exports. So, and then when you look at it too, I mean, government is not an enterprise that is out to make profit. Basically, when you look, government construct roads, hospitals, without actually adding any fee to it in order to make money. So it's the same thing. We're trying to now improve the economy and ensure that at least forex comes in back to this country in huge amounts. So that is the objective. You know, those three items that were itemized as the objective of setting up the EEG are the ones that are making government to continue with the scheme over and over again. Mr. Adamu in his presentation also, you know, discussed issues relating to financial issues and revenues coming into government due to probably the fall in oil price and other things. These are some of the things that actually militate or cause problems to the funding of the scheme. You know, we've tried to address those issues, that some of those main issues that have been militating against and generating these backlogs. That is why the CBN colleague of mine mentioned the technical committee that was set up by the Interministerial Committee on the EEG to come up with sustainable funding processes for the scheme itself. I need to point out that the committee had actually completed its work. We're just waiting for the IMC to meet and then consider and hopefully approve or look at better ways for funding of the scheme. You see, as we're moving along, things are happening and there are developments coming up. That is why the issue of the conversion of even the EEG backlog into the promissory note was all a new development in order to address this issue of finding ways to resolve the problems of backlogs. So who knows, maybe the 2017 to 19 might also be one of the areas that we can probably also try and see if we can settle it through the same process that we're able to settle the last backlogs. And sorry, I wanted to also mention something regarding because I saw.
So you have to be quick a little because of time.
Okay, I'll be quick. I'll be quick with this one. Actually, I wanted to correct there was a statement made by Bamidele, you know, regarding the number of the companies because I was the one that actually mentioned over 1,000 companies. Basically, when I mentioned 1,000, it's not the annual figures. I was talking about the total backlogs of the companies that covered a period between 2007 to 2016. So it was the total number of those companies within that period that now reached that number of about 1,000. Within and annually, we have between 500 or 600 companies that export from the figures that we get from the pre-shipment inspection agents and what have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawan. So the floor is now open for question and answer from participants. So one of the questions that came in is to DC Daki. How easy is it to use promissory notes to settle import duty? How easy is it?
No, you see, non-duty credit certificate before promissory note was invoked. And I think it has been stopped using it since 2017. So okay. I don't think the issue of this promissory note is workable too. That is my opinion.
If this is not workable from really? So okay, well, thank you, Mr. Lawan. Just one second. Let me ask Mr. Adamu. Just a follow-up question from his response. Mr. Adamu, are you with us?
I am with you.
Those exporters that were rejected, like you said, they have documentation issue. Was there at any point, did you consult them? Did KPMG consult them and ask them for clarification? Because we are talking about a government agency giving a clean slate to an exporter that has invested his money. I'm emphasizing invested his money. and a government, you got to a different government agency, you brought in an independent consultant. An independent consultant set aside an approval that has already been given. At any point, did they call those exporters for clarification? Just one line, just a quick one.
Okay, the answer is very simple. Yes, that's the answer. Because whenever there is, deficiency in your documentation, let's say you are supposed to submit A, B, C, D, E, for actually the KPMG to say your claim is okay, and then you submit only A, B, and C, KPMG will go back to the exporter through NEPC and said, well, exporter A, document C and D are not available. Can you liaise with the exporter and ask him to resubmit those documents? So if after giving you such opportunities time and time again, it's either, well, basically, even if your claim will not be verified in as much as those documents that you're supposed to provide are not there. So it's as simple as that. So we have been actually getting in touch with them where there is any deficiency. We'll go back to them to actually ask them to submit.
Okay, thank you very much. Chief Ede, you represent exporters on this platform. You are one of those that represent exporters. Mr. Bamidele represents exporters. So I hope your members can collaborate what Mr. Adamu just submitted, his submission. And I hope that is fine.
Thank you, Mr. Umba. There are several issues with that response. The first is that whilst the DMO is paying claims based on a National Assembly approval, the desk review carried out by the KPMG team means that where amounts above the National Assembly should have been approved, the DMO can only pay amounts that have actually been passed to them as approved. So a claim for 1 million naira that is approved finally by the National Assembly as 800,000, the DMO have no power to approve the additional 200 that may have been missed out in the process getting to that stage. That's the first point. The second point is that where the KPMG were invited to do a desk review, by definition, my understanding is the desk review means that the papers made available to them is what they review and that there is no interaction with the exporters. I'm yet to have any exporter come to me to say that there was such an interaction, but I cannot dispute what DMO has reported here.
Thank you very much, Chief. If you have any other questions, we can now ask, the floor is now open for participants. You can raise your hand if you have any question, they will unmute you. You can ask your question and make your contribution. The technical team, is anybody ready? I saw 2 hands raised up earlier. Are they still there? Not Mr. Lawa, not Titi Ojo.
I have enabled him to speak.
Okay,
Andrew Apeji, his hands are up.
Okay, Andrew, go ahead, please.
I think he's having a challenge.
Okay, Alaji Ladan. Alaji Sada Ladan Baki.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Gabriel Iwepu from Vanguard newspaper. I'm in Abuja. My question is, sir, is to the DG from CBN. In terms of unfettered access to Forex, specifically by members of FACA, Federation of Agricultural Commodities Association of Nigeria. So they have been complaining, saying the policy from CBN hindered them not to have access to their money they traded with, which brought profit to them. So I want to know how far have you engaged these people? And what have you done to address their concerns? And I have a second question. You know, we talked about issues at the ports, bottlenecks exporters are facing there. This has been an issue that have lingered for too long and is hindering export business in the country. Well, the question is to the NEPC. What is your organization doing in collaboration with those managing the port to reduce these bottlenecks so exporters will have a free flow of doing their business in the spirit of ease of doing business? Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. So Mr. Sada. Mr. Sada, go ahead, please.
Hear me? Yes, I think you can hear me. Yeah. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, my contributions as follows. I believe we should refer to...
And you are not audible, Mr. Sada. You are not audible.
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
I think you are far away from your mic.
Oh, my mouth is near the mic, actually. Okay. What of now? Can you hear me?
Okay, fantastic. This is fine now. This is fine. Now go ahead.
Okay. I say I want to refer the participants to the subject matter being a round table. My observation is that all the government representatives are busy putting up a defense. I have not had anything concrete that will encourage exporters to continue exporting. Everybody is giving one technicality or one story, which is unfortunate. The essence of a roundtable is also listen to our positions and then come up with workable suggestions. The man from DMO, he's busy trying to tell us this one has approved, that one has approved. He's not even thinking about the exporter who has invested so much money and he's still sitting down there, all of them. It is rather unfortunate. I don't want to criticize anybody, all right? I believe it is work in progress, but gentlemen and ladies, January is across the road. Act 5 is going to be open.
Okay, so fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Alaji Sada. This brings me to my question. AFCFTA is before us. Mr. Femi Boyede, you made a presentation. Okay, before I allow you to speak, does anybody still have question? Because
did you allow me to finish? Well, so I should stop?
I think you've made your point. You've made your point.
I made one point.
We allow other persons to make their point.
I allowed you to finish now, moderator.
Don't rush us. Then the whole thing will just come and sit down. My point is, look, what do we want to hear from government officials like DMO, like Export Promotion Council and what have you? What are you going to do, all right, to support exporters, all right, going forward? We're not here to quarrel with you. We're only here to sit down and tell you what our problems are. We have engaged NEPC as a MANIC. We have been to the National Assembly, and most of what we're hearing here is not really as encouraging as it is supposed to be. Government understands cash, but government is supposed to understand money. How do you make money that you transfer it into cash? Everything that we have been talking about is cash, the end result. What are you going to do to support us to continue export? If we are not competitive come January 1, how do you expect us to face the Moroccans that are ready to move in? Thank you.
There's one more hand up, Yabo Ademola. Maybe she should ask a question then.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question. Ms.
Yabo. Yabo Ademola.
He's still muted.
I've asked her to unmute. She needs to click. I've sent a request for her to, yes. Yabo, yes, you can speak now. Yabo Ademola Oshinuga, your hands are raised. Okay, then we also have, one more person.
Dr. Titi's hands are raised.
Okay, Dr. Titi hands, okay.
Thank you. I wanted to say a big thank you to all the participants and the panelists so far. It's been very illuminating, and the discussion has been very good so far. I just wanted to take this opportunity also to say to all of us that the purpose, the hope that we had when we put together this event was so that we could bring the best minds together to really, deliberate and find ways forward that will help Nigeria. It's not enough to pay lip service to becoming a competitor, even if you're just talking in the regional level of Africa, to compete favorably against our African neighbors. It's not something that we can do by just playing lip service to it. So I want to implore all of us, this is not an adversarial platform. We're not here to argue. We're not here to point fingers. We want solutions that will actually help Nigeria's exporters export and, compete favorably across Africa and the rest of the world. So I just want to implore, the government representatives here, please hear the heart cry of those who are actually doing the business, because if their businesses succeed, Nigeria succeeds. It's better for all of us. So I just wanted to just take this opportunity to implore all of us. This is not a platform for pointing fingers or for complaints. We want solutions, and that's why we're here. It is important that we actually address those concerns that have been raised here and have cogent things that we can each take away as government that we can use to drive reforms, understanding what really needs to change, and as businesses that we can use to actually improve our businesses. So please, I want us to raise the game on the conversation, basically. What are we going to do about these problems? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Moderator, there's one more hand.
I think Mr. Boyede.
Mr. Boyede.
Thank you very much, moderator. I believe as co-host, I was prevented from raising my hand virtually. So I want to just quickly address, just in case we don't end up having the time. There are a few issues that have been raised by various speakers. First, let me explain to our esteemed director and unit head from the DMO. My appreciation of all the very, very professional submissions that you have made is undermined by the fact of having been engaged. And please, this time around, I'm making these contributions outside my cap as the one who conducted the study. I'm making this as one who has been in this industry for 28 years. My concern is the federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Finance, set up the PICA, Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit. This exercise took them around the whole country. It was interministerial. I'm very sure if at that time the promissory notes had been instituted, DMO would have been an integral player. It's because you were not yet brought into the payment system. So these people went around for 7 months with the NEPC, Nigeria Customs, Ministry of Finance, to go and verify physically, forensic visitation to every company, and the consultant to the federal government of Nigeria was PwC. So you said that you needed an international audit firm. After PICA exercise, then the National Assembly conducted its own audit. My understanding of your presentation was when the Federal Executive Council has approved and the National Assembly has released, your role was to pay. And now, you now had to go and appoint another international firm. So my question is this an expression of or an indication of lack of trust or confidence between the different levels of the same government? Does the DMO doubt the integrity of the Federal Ministry of Finance? Does it doubt the integrity of the National Assembly that had audited these people? And in the same way, I'll quickly also explain that one of the things that I think we need to put into the fore is, and it is a part of that report that I presented, one of our recommendations was a cabinet level committee that looks into export development and growth in Nigeria. And Dr. Titi has just mentioned that there would have been no need for customs to antagonize what CBN said and this, if there is a team that where all these issues are being raised. I once attended under the late Chief Ufote Kaite as a secretary to the government, an interministerial meeting of ministers where somebody, let me actually say, from customs said, I will not accept, and then somebody had to say, it's not a matter of I. So the point made there is that of synergy. So the concern of the chairman of Man Export Group about legislation, let me explain my own understanding. Our conclusion is that the Export Expansion Grant Fund, the fund itself, needs to be legislated. One of the challenges we found, especially in our engagement with not the private sector now, the public sector people we engage with, was that there is no law setting up the Export Expansion Grant Fund. As a fund, legally, it needs to be activated, backed by law on its own. The fund of NIMASA, which had been there since 1986, is actually for the NEPC. It is the prerogative of the NEPC what it uses that fund for, whatever they get from NIMASA. So if there is legislation of the Export Expansion Grant Fund, part of that legislation could actually compel the NEPC to pay a certain percentage of what they get from NIMASA into the Export Expansion Grant Fund. When this is done, we will no longer be relying on budgetary allocation, which has dwindled down the road. I understand it is only 1 billion in the 2021 budget. And I wonder who is going to take the 1 billion. And lastly, I would also like to appeal to the Central Bank of Nigeria. You are intervening in various sectors. You can bail government out at this point if truly you believe that Nigeria's forex capacity is dwindling. The response from Central Bank should not be a military action wherein they are now commanding shipping companies and other players in this thing. They are commanding them. You don't command somebody who you have not funded. Like everybody has said, Alhaji Ladan Baki just mentioned of it being an investment. Just have a minute more. When people have invested, they own their decisions. So the danger that the government faces is what Bamidele Ayemibo said. People are going to start shipping from other countries.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Boyede.
Please, moderator, let me make this last point. One of the slides, and when you read the report, you will see that one of the countries we compared with actually has a separate window for inflows as a result of export. So it will not be out of place if CBN considers introducing what Ayemibo has said, the IES and what have you, is not addressing the exchange rate. There needs to be a preferential exchange rate for export dollars. Thank you.
So just 1 second, Mr. Adamu, before you respond. I saw Titi Ojo, I saw hands raised up.
Right. So there's Abdulaziz. I'm asking you to unmute, Abdulaziz. I just sent a message, unmute, and then speak. Abdulaziz Adekule.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Abdulaziz Adekule. Good afternoon, the organizer, the panelists, and the other participants. My question is actually to the DMO's office, and in furtherance to his comment about representing the outstanding claims to the National Assembly by FEC. He made mention that they were waiting for the other beneficiaries who are not actually exporters to fine-tune their numbers and represent it. So my question is this: why are we waiting for other beneficiaries when the exporters' numbers can be presented by FEC to the National Assembly? I think this thing can be done in batches. Why are we waiting for everybody to be ready before we present our numbers? And knowing the fact that this amount has been outstanding for more than 10 years, we are talking about claims between 2006 and 2007 to 2016. And we need to be aware as well. Part of this claim, NDDC is there. NDDC is already government debt that has been verified and confirmed. So we don't need to be waiting for other beneficiaries before we present our numbers.
Thank you very much.
Numbers, let the National Assembly approve it and have our money. Already the money has been depreciated already.
Thank you very much, Abdulaziz. Anyone else? We have
Simidele Onobajo.
Okay, Simidele, go ahead.
Accept the request from you. Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you, Dr. Ojo. My name is Simidele Onobajo, and I work with NAFDAC. I've spoken at PDF forum before, and I would just like to reiterate that the country, Nigeria, is encouraging diversification, especially into non-oil exports. Basically, we are talking about food, cosmetics, and other regulated products that NAFDAC has a mandate over, including export products. But what we've been seeing is that a lot of informal exports takes place. Exports without certification based on analysis before they are being exported. And the result is that we receive RASP alerts stating that these products have dichlorophos, they have aflatoxins, they have things like that. Why don't exporters factor in at least 2 weeks for conformity assessment before export takes place to ensure that the quality of the products being exported are wholesome and satisfactory?
Thank you very much, Semidele. Is there another person?
There, I think all hands. Yes, there's Shankar, yes. There's Shankar Danikonda. Accept my request to talk.
If Ede's hand is up too.
Yes, Shankar Danikonda. Please, can you speak? Shankar, I've unmuted you.
Go ahead, you can speak now.
Mr. Shankar, you are unmuted. Speak.
Someone else.
Okay. I think that's, let me allow, I think he's not speaking.
Okay, then there's Iboku Oluwakerede. He's been on mute.
Iboku.
Please speak.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Can we hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So I was prompted to just at the point where Madam Smith spoke. My concerns around the quality architecture is not really at the point of export, like 2 weeks. We are really now concerned about conformity. If the architecture for quality is functional, I appeal that the UNIDO National Quality Infrastructure provisions that is yet to be fully domesticated should be looked into. There are third-party private sector-led conformity modalities that we should look into. The meanness is constrained and all of those. That's where we should start. So all of those processes, we would be sure of quality and trust for trade before even the point of getting to report. And it won't be that it's 2 weeks to the time they are thinking some people should come and check for what they are doing. So that's necessary, and we need to look at that for competitiveness as we gradually progress.
Thank you very much, Ibukun. Thank you very much. So let me allow Mr. Adamu to respond. Mr. Adamu, we want solution now. What is the way forward? So now we are rounding up. What is the way forward? Just give us solution.
You have not allowed me to talk.
Pardon?
Mr. Sada Ladan.
Okay, Mr. Yes. Sada, just 1 second. Mr. Sada Ladan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. You know, there was a speaker from NAFDAC. I thought we were just going to finish this meeting without the fireworks. But, but you see, she raised the issue of conformity and what have you. Part of our problems is actually NAFDAC. They do not have the capacity and the facility to discharge their duties. What I expect them to do coming up here is to appeal to government to increase their capacity. That's what we have raised in several meetings and conferences. What's finding a solution? Let's move forward. You are talking about.
Okay, so Sadan said NAFDAC should call on government to raise the capacity. That is the solution for them to conform. So, Mr. Adamu, your final remark and the way forward.
Yeah, before the final remark, actually, I have to actually respond to the concerns raised by about three. Mr. Boyede actually talked about why we are doing the review when this thing has been reviewed by PICA. You understand? Maybe I didn't explain myself very well. This review was not instituted by the Debt Management Office. The Federal Executive Council approval was very, very clear. Alhaji Ladan was saying I am talking about rules. We are supposed to do this. We are supposed to do that. DMO is issuing the promissory notes. In fact, we are in this. We really appreciate the concern because we interacted with NEPC and we shared the concern of the exporters. Like I said, this program is for 3 trillion naira and we are trying to see as much as we can, how we can. Okay, the Federal Executive Council approved that these claims should be verified and it should be settled through a reverse auction. Like I said, there were some claims that were exempted. So it's not DMO that instituted this reverse auction. And to be frank with you, after initially, when we met with the exporters, there was a meeting we had in Lagos, they shared this concern that why are we reviewing it? But at the end of the day, after this claim has been reviewed, we realized that, look, there is cogent reason that this claim should be reviewed. I'm telling you, I don't want to say it here, but we've observed that there are 1,001 duplications, NXPs that were used to actually issue NDCCs were resubmitted to actually, process claims. So we don't want to go there. It's not about, sharing blames here. You understand? We share the concern, but like I said, we're talking about 3 trillion naira, and the government doesn't have the money. We have to tell ourselves the truth. While we actually want to aspire to, where we want to go, we have to look at the situation on the ground. No. Sorry, moderator. And then I've seen a chief talked about that maybe the reverse auction wasn't transparent. Maybe there's need to engage people that participated in the auction. NEPC is here. I think there is nothing more transparent, frankly speaking. In fact, we actually have to submit what we call counter offer to you. Are you okay with it? If you're not okay, you step back. There may be another auction. We did 3 auctions. So to actually conclude that whether the claim is not, some of us were, at the front line track, we share the concern. But like I said, the money is not there. Debt Management Office, if we issue this promissory note of 1 trillion naira, it adds to 1 trillion naira. Papers will take it that the national debt has increased by 1 trillion naira, as if we are actually issuing it for ourselves. So we have to try and strike a balance on what the situation actually is. So this is the situation. The process is extremely transparent, and the review, even if people have problem with the back section, I have no problem with it. But the review by KPMG has revealed, not only on the exporters, on the contractors too. I'm not saying whether somebody did his job well or not, but it has revealed that there is very, very congent need that the claims should be reviewed again. There are duplications. If you have NDCCs that are outstanding, nobody cares about the documentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Damu. Thank you very much, Mr. Damu. So I'm going to move to Chief Ede. Chief Ede, your final remark, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mba. I will be brief. Firstly, the DMO has said that they found that the review of these claims was essential because there were some issues of duplication. I want to appeal strongly to the DMO. Please prosecute all cases you found where there were fraudulent submissions. Let it, for once and for all, there cannot be rumors of fraud or rumors of duplicated entry. Please publish, prosecute. Let us know those that are fraudulently submitting claims so as we can put it to bed once and for all.
Thank you.
Then I want to address also, the issue that I said that the promising note process was not transparent. I want to correct that. What is not transparent is that the exporters were asked to bid using the reverse auction process, at least for the first bid. And having submitted the bids, the reverse auction process was now cancelled, and an average bid was then used to allocate the promissory notes. And that process is what I'm saying is not transparent. If you'd asked me in the initial stage to bid and told me you are going to use an average, I would have possibly bid a different level than if you told me it was going to be on a reverse auction basis. That is where I say it is not transparent, please. On no other issue, I say it's not transparent.
Thank you very much, Chief.
I'd like to say that for the DMO to even ask for a discount is unfair to exporters. These are claims that are 10, 15 years old, already discounted by a fraction of time. And now the DMO is asking on behalf of government that exporters should offer a discount. This is totally unfair. I am not going to be allowed to give government a discount if my taxes are due. I cannot say to government, please, I can only pay 50% of my taxes, therefore you should please accept 50%. It would not fly. And I don't see why I should have an NDCC that government has issued me that I'm now told is only worth 50% of the paper it is written on. Totally unfair, sir.
Thank you very much, Chief. Dr. Titi is raising her hand. Dr. Titi, do you want to make any comment? Your hand is up, Dr. Titi. Oh, maybe it's the format. So I'll go to Mrs. Chika. Mrs. Chika, your closing remark.
Good afternoon, all.
Yeah,
I just want to tell us that Central Bank as a regulator, we're doing all that we can to encourage exports. Export is very close to our hearts, and we want to do everything possible to ensure the exporters are having a soft landing. We are part of that, the business that did reduce the number of requirements that you need to do exports in Nigeria to aid the ease of doing business. The automation of the NXP, which we are carrying out, is all part of trying to ease the export business for people. But of course, unfortunately, there are a few hitches here and there, which we are working on to ensure that we get over them. So we are looking for solutions, and like I mentioned earlier, NEPC is going. I'm going to talk with my colleague. We'll remind to write a letter of reminder to the minister on the proposal we made on additional funding for the EEG. So and then someone also talked about separate window for the exporters. I want to say that if we keep creating separate windows here and there, it's the same people that are going to come out and tell us that CBN has different windows, that we should reduce the windows that we have. And that's why we have tried to close these windows. But unfortunately, the market forces are causing the power market to be so high now. And I don't think we should do our business based on the power market, because it's not what is done everywhere in the world. Nobody does business based on the power market. So
thank you very much, Mrs. Speaker.
Possible to put policies in place such that there is a bridge, that it comes nearer. A few years ago, like our facilitator said, it was almost the same. Everybody was coming to the I&E window. Now it's higher out there. Everybody wants to move out. So let's try and encourage the system so that it works. When we repatriate properly, do all these things properly, and engage the official line, everything will be transparent. The country gets the benefit of exports, and then we're able to monitor even our balance of payments.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chika. You can round up now.
Okay, so thank you so much for everything. We'll take all the suggestions you have made back to our management, and we'll look at it, and all we want to do is to improve the ease of doing business, to make life easier for the exporters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Closing remark, this is Daki. 1 minute, please.
I would like to appreciate PDF for organizing this forum, which is very educative and enlightening to everyone. And I wish this will serve as a correction to all of us who participate, so that we can move forward in encouraging export or non-oil products outside the country. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a link for feedback. It has been posted on the comment section. Kindly it's just going to take you 2 minutes or less to complete the link. Just click on it and just give us your feedback. That will help us in the actionable points going forward. Mr. Bamidele, can you give us your closing remark, please? And after Mr. Bamidele, let's turn our video on so that they take a picture before Titi Ojo comes on board. Bamidele, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Go ahead.
I didn't hear you, please.
We can hear you.
Go ahead. Make your closing remark.
I didn't hear what you said.
Your closing remark.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an interesting session. And like I said, I'm of the opinion that what we need to do basically is to be able to ensure that if EEG is not working, what is important is that we get export working. Whatever other option we have to explore, I think is welcome, as long as exporters from Nigeria become competitive, particularly considering the AFCFTA that is soon to take off, in which we get.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bamidele. I think he's having some network problem. I'm not sure now, but have you made your point? So, Mr. Lawa, you
didn't hear me. Are you serious?
Yes, it was frustrating.
I've made the point.
Yes,
Okay, good.
we had.
Okay, Mr. Lawan, your closing remark, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, I want to express our appreciation and also congratulations to the PDF for organizing this forum and for the report. I'm sure it will add a lot of value to what we're doing. And for us on the part of the NEPC, we've always been on the side of the exporters. They are, let me use this word, our babies. We always there for them, you know, and wherever it is, whether advocacy, whether to go there in person or to ensure the policies are favorable, that will become favorable to the exporting community. These are the things, is our mandate, is what we want to do, is what we want to ensure. But we know that there are several things. I don't want to start, you know, like, because I saw somebody was making comments that government officials are trying to defend themselves. It's not about that. It's about telling the truth and about trying to actually ensure that this economy works well and you carry everybody along. The NEPC will continue with its efforts in order to ensure that the playing ground is leveled and people are able to export, and Forex comes in more and the exporters are able to access their Forex, and the economy becomes better for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawa. So, Ms. Titi Ojo, do you want to take the picture now? Do you want to give us your closing remark? And let me just remind us to fill the survey question for feedback, and we enable our video so we can take picture.
Okay,
Thank you.
I don't think the attendees may not be able to enable their video.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a webinar. It's a webinar.
Okay, but we can. Yes. Can we?
Yes, for every other person on the panel, please you can enable your video. And while we're at it, just want to say thank you. There's a thank you from PDF for, we want to first appreciate the panelists. We're able to dedicate the last almost 2.5 hours right now. We've been at this. Thank you so much, all our panelists. Really appreciate you. The facilitator of today, really appreciate you. The presenter, really appreciate everyone. And everyone that's taking time to attend, participate, and contribute. We are very grateful. I know that some of us, our questions weren't answered. If I'm correct, Mr. Shankar had issues, and I have a feeling he has some very serious statements to make. I'm not too sure if it's something we can still take. And I also realized that someone from Vanguard asked the question, and we weren't able to take it. I'm not sure if the facilitator can remember the press man. I think someone from the media asked the question.
So, some of the questions that were asked,
from the media,
handling bureaucratic bottleneck.
I think someone from the media asked the question.
Yeah, it's from Vanguard. What is CBN doing to handle bureaucratic bottleneck at the ports?
Okay. Was the question answered?
No, Mrs. Chika didn't really answer the question, but the DC DACI responded in terms of the infrastructure and everything. So I felt that should do.
Okay. I needed to ask that because I got a message from the back end that the person was yet to get his answer. So thank you, everyone. We put a link in the chat box. It's very important that you fill it for us. It's our own way of also checking to see that we're able to meet your expectations, and also the feedback helps for future guests. So that's absolutely important for us. This is just about 2 to 3 minutes. It won't take much of your time, and the link is right there. Please click on it and fill. The report from this session will be, of course, we always have a report from every of our meetings, and once it's concluded and approved, we always upload it on our website. Also, the study, this EG study will be on our website subsequently. Our website is www.pdfnigeria.org. pdfnigeria.org. Beyond this meeting, make pdfnigeria.org your favorite website, actually, because there's a lot of resources there. There are lots of studies that PDF has conducted and commissioned, for the past at least 4, even 6 years, and they're all from PDF to PDF2 to PDF. A whole lot of resources are on that website. So please, you can visit that site to get all the information you want on, of course, what PDF has been doing in the last, at least in its first, second, and this is the third coming. So we thank you again for, Mr. Boyede, thank you so much. I know you have to wake up very early from Canada this morning and join this. You must actually especially say thank you for the sacrifices and for the report that we're able to put together for us for this particular study. Thank you so much. At the end of it all, what we are looking for is